All right, everybody, welcome back to another edition of the Teardown. My name is Jeff Gluck, and I'm along with my coworker Jordan Bianchi. We are motorsports writers for The Athletic, and we are here at Daytona International Speedway. We have just watched the Daytona 500, and we are going to talk about that. You may hear some background noise because the Xfinity Series race is still going on. Trying to keep an eye on that. Just to make sure nothing crazy happens as we're talking about things here, Jordan. But weird day in that the Cup Series season has started before the Xfinity Series season. Another rainy weekend for NASCAR. Oof. But the race is gotten in under sunny skies. William Byron has won the Daytona 500. First of all, Jordan, how are you doing?
We have to discuss the elephant in the room before we get to anything else. And we won't spend too much time on this. You look damn good, my friend. I don't know who dressed you, but you look great. Endless stream of compliments on social media, praise throughout the garage, nonstop. Jeff Gluck looks great. So kudos to you. Marvelous.
All right, listen, you were right. Okay, the outfit is nice. I will give you that. I want everybody to. I'm not being a. You look okay. It's nice. It's better than I thought. Okay, like. You know, it's not bad. Okay, I liked it. But listen, wearing this outfit was like if I put the Mickey Mouse costume on to walk around Disneyland today. Like the amount of people, like I could not go anywhere without people saying something or want to take a picture, which is nice. That's great. I'm not mad at that.
I'm so hard being Jeff Gluck. I know. It's the cross you bear.
That's what I don't like. I do a lot. I don't want people to look at me. I'm never the kind of person that's going to have a fancy sports car so that I roll up and people are like, oh, look at that guy. But yet last night at a gas station, I'm pumping gas. The guy rolls down his window and goes, hey, nice suit. Love the suit. I walk into my hotel lobby last night, no joke, and a guy goes, man, love the suit. Every single person in the hotel lobby turns their heads and looks at me. That's my nightmare, okay? I don't like that. So when I was, walking around the track today and people are saying stuff, and look, as you said, it's all positive. People like it. They're not saying, oh, you look like a clown. You did me a favor. You were very generous in your outfit here. It's not bad. I dig it, but I don't like everybody looking at me, which is, again, weird for somebody talking to a bunch of people on a podcast right now when you're all looking at me. But no, listen, it's just weird. I can't wait till this is over. I have brought a change of clothes into the media center. As soon as we're done with this podcast, I am out of this thing. So I have fulfilled my end of the deal. We will never do this bet again. We'll do a different bet. And look, here's all you need to know. On pit road after the race, drivers are getting out of their car after Daytona 500, and before they're answering questions, they're making comments about my suit. I ran into Dale Earnhardt Jr., and he walks up to me and he goes, ha, ha, ha! And then he just left without saying anything. He didn't even say any words. He just went, ha ha!
I was in victory lane covering William Byron's victory. Alex Bowman came by to graciously congratulate his teammate on his win, which we will certainly get into. Alex comes up to me and goes, you picked us. He was astonished about the suit. And actually, I don't know if Alex was a fan of the suit. He was one of the rare exceptions who maybe didn't like it as much as others. But even he commented as he was in victory lane celebrating a 1-2 for Hendrick Motorsports.
Well, let's talk about the race because
Let's do that.
We're
done with this. We're moving on.
Okay. Speaking of Alex Bowman, yeah, we'll get to that later. But he certainly played a part in the finish, and I don't know what to make of this because to me, first of all, on the top level of all this, I thought it was a great Daytona 500. I was very enthralled. I thought the racing was really good. Yes, a lot of the pack racing is because they were saving fuel, and so they were stuck together for a long period of time and not going anywhere, and I get that. But when they raced, like toward the end of stage 2, and you're like, surely they're going to wreck, and they didn't. And then for, a large portion toward the end of the race after the last fuel stop and everything, it was super compelling, super tense. You felt like the big one could happen at any moment, and it finally did. But up until that point, it could have happened seemingly a dozen times. Even William Byron said in the press conference that he couldn't believe it took that long for them. So, I just thought it was really compelling. Now, yes, the race ends anticlimactically because we didn't get to see sort of the finish. And we'll talk about the finish as well and sort of the controversy that goes along with that. But overall, I just thought, okay, I was pretty entertained. I was pretty into it the entire time. So to me, it was a good Daytona 500. What about you?
I have no reason to complain about the race. I mean, yeah, you could say you'd like to see that last lap finish, but it's part of it, right? Sometimes that happens, and I thought the racing was really good. I didn't really feel like there was a lot of lulls, to be honest with you. Sometimes in these races, especially in the middle stages, people kind of settle down, start running single file, and you don't really see much, and it feels like you're just kind of riding it out and kind of collecting laps. It never felt like that at all. And one point, a couple points actually, like 63 laps to go, I was like, and I didn't know the lap count. And I'm like, man, I wonder if we're, close to halfway here. And I looked up and I'm like, holy crap, like we're well past halfway. There's 60 some laps left in this race. And then it got down to like 20 to go. And I was like, whoa, it blew by. And I will say, we so often in these races talk about the big ones and the crashes and everything else and, these multi-car accidents. And certainly we had that. No denying that at the end. But we went a really long stretch today with none of that, and I don't even know if I count that one on lap 5 or 6 because that just happens. Like you're going to see those kind of wrecks happen, especially at the beginning of a race at any track when the field is bunched together and there's nowhere for anyone to go. They raced hard. They raced relatively clean. I thought there was passing. We talk a lot about super speedways about can guys make moves? Can guys come from the back? We saw that today, and it wasn't easy, and I think sometimes that can be with these aero packages is people want big moves, and it almost seems like too easy. It's like you can just go from the back to the front and in a couple laps. Like you kind of got to work your way up there, and it was part of it. I liked how this race played out. I think it rewarded drivers who were smart and positioned themselves correctly. Of course, there's elements of luck. But William Byron did a really good job today. I thought Denny Hamlin did a really good job of kind of putting himself in position with the last 50, 60 laps of, oh, here comes Denny Hamlin. Now he's asserting himself. This was a really good race from beginning to end. Yeah, the finish was what it was. You're going to get that, though, and you got a worthy winner. I think it's important. I got to be careful how I say this. I'm not diminishing what Michael McDowell did in 2021. Austin Cindric did in 2022, or Ricky Stenhouse did in 2023. They were deserving winners. They are very good in super speedways races. But it's also nice to see one of NASCAR's elite talents, championship contenders, who going into the year everyone has pegged as one of the guys who's going to win the championship, rise to the occasion and win this race. It really hasn't happened since 2020, and it was good to see that happen tonight.
Yeah, you start off the year now. The last few years we've been, our playoff picks are destroyed right away here. We're wrong.
There was a couple moments tonight where I thought, oh, man, we are in trouble.
Sure. Well, and that's exciting in itself. But, we started off here where my pick for the person that's going to be the driver of the year overall goes straight to victory lane. And it's important to think, too, about William Byron because, we did a NASCAR 75 survey before last season. We polled a bunch of people in the industry, team owners, track executives, drivers, all sorts of people, right? And you may recall that William Byron was not among the top 75 greatest Cup Series drivers in NASCAR history. Alex Bowman was one of the last ones to make the cut, but Byron at the time hadn't done enough. Then he goes out last year and he leads the series and wins. He makes the Final Four. Now he is a Daytona 500 champion at age 26.
Yeah.
It's pretty indisputable now. He's probably not just among the top 75, but maybe closer to the top 60 or so. So all of a sudden you're like, okay, you can see what's happening for William Byron here. He's emerged. He's broken out. He's not going to go backwards. He's not going to fall off a cliff. He's only going to get better. He even said in his press conference tonight, there's so many things I can do better as a driver, and I'm still learning. Think about, 5 years from now, 10 years from now, after he's been in the series and gotten all this more experience, and is still driving for a top team. He's going to be lethal. He's going to win multiple championships. He's just going to be someone who's just constantly there for the next generation. And now he has checked off already a Daytona 500 where they showed on the TV graphic earlier, 6 current Cup champions have never won this race. So it's a big day for him. It's a big day for Hendrick Motorsports, who today is the 40th anniversary of their first ever race. They have now tied the all-time Daytona 500 wins record with 9. So it all sort of flows together for Hendrick at least. And, William Byron is starting off right away saying, here we go. It's going to be a big season for him, I think.
You make a really good point about Byron, and I think this can be something I write about on The Athletic, in that, he's always been labeled the can't-miss prospect, the NASCAR's next superstar, future champion, the prodigy, right? All of these big labels have been put on him, and really every step of the way, he's fulfilled expectations and done it almost immediately. Wins, goes to the Truck Series in his rookie year, dominates. Doesn't win the championship, but dominates. Goes to the Xfinity Series the next year, wins the championship as a rookie, comes into Cup, has a really good, solid rookie year, wins Rookie of the Year, continues to make progress, makes the playoff the next year. And, but then it kind of felt like he almost, I don't want to say plateau, but you could see it. Like he was kind of having a hard time getting over that hump. And then last year, though, he did it. He wins 6 races, leads the most, does all of these big things and leads these major statistical categories. And it's like, whoa. He is really now arrived. But that said, we have seen young drivers before. Kyle Larson had a monster year in 2017 and wins 4 races and felt like he had merged. The next year, he wins 0 races. Casey Kane wins 6 races 1 year. Finally, he breaks through and seems like he's finally going to fulfill the expectations. And then the next year doesn't win any. It was, I don't want to say Byron had to prove it again because it's unfair, but and I don't want to use the word fluke, but I don't know another word to use. And like you've got to back it up, right? You got to show people that this isn't just a 1-year wonder. And he did it like he's done throughout his career. He has knocked it down. And it seems silly that, you're going to label, a driver coming off a monster year like this. And now, he's got to win on a super speedway, but this is the Daytona 500. This is a race, as you've noted. Many a driver, great driver, has not won this race. And he's now checked it off at age 26. And it really feels like the future is unlimited for him.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. And, this is, I'm sure, a very, very rewarding win for Hendrick and Chevrolet as well. The whole talk, even today, at the tweet up, right? We're asking people who you think is going to win. And all you could think about was Toyota because they looked, as we talked about on our Duels podcast, they looked so good. They looked so fast. And you're like, I bet the Toyotas are going to dominate this race. Really, it seemed like a pretty even split between the manufacturers. I mean, I didn't really get the sense that one was far superior to another. But for Chevrolet to be the one manufacturer that did not have the new car, a new model this year, and all the talk was about the Fords and the Toyotas, and you go, oh, well, look, right away they win the Daytona 500 and Hendrick wins it for the first time in 10 years. I'm sure that's a pretty satisfying thing for Chevrolet. Now, does that mean anything for the rest of the season? No, right? Like, I mean, it doesn't mean anything. We don't know what it's going to do on short tracks or intermediates, but for them to get this one, I'm sure feels quite nice.
Yeah, you say you feel like the Chevys were in the mix, and I'll take the opposite approach. To me, it felt, for a lot of the night, a Ford night. It seemed like the Fords were really quick. I know Chase Elliott won stage 1, and the Hendrick drivers teamed up there at the end of it there to pass Kyle Busch to get the win. But it was kind of a lot of strategy there. It felt like, to me, the Ford teams were really really Penske especially, was in control of this race, or asserting themselves. And then towards the end, here comes Denny Hamlin. The Hendrick guys were certainly in the mix, but it didn't feel like they were just kind of on the edge, it felt like. And it felt like it was going to come down to one of the Ford guys or maybe Denny Hamlin at the end. And then you had that big accident in turn 3, which, wiped out Keselowski and Blaney and Truex and Hamlin and a lot of heavy hitters. And then all of a sudden, that to me is when the Chevys really asserted themselves, and it was like, okay, now this is their ball game.
I agree with that to an extent of like the Hendrick guys, had a lot of their competition eliminated. But remember who was leading when that wreck happened? It was Ross Chastain.
Yeah, true.
He
Good
was,
point.
when they had come off that last pit stop, and it looked like the Fords, led by Joey Logano, were going to sort of pick all that line off that had already that had just come off pit road, and he got all the way up, and Chastain pulled up in front, and Chastain was controlling it to that point. So it
just felt like it was inevitable that the Fords were going to get him, though.
it could be. I mean, but then the wreck happened. So
then the wreck happened. It doesn't matter. I mean, but that's super speedway racing.
So let's talk about, there was sort of two wrecks I think that are worth talking about. There was the one, early in the race, the Keselowski push of Nemechek, and Nemechek then ends up hitting Harrison Burton. Harrison Burton collects Hocevar and Austin Dillon, Jimmy Johnson, Kaz Grala. Yeah. But that wasn't really the race defining wreck, right? Like the big one was all the heavy hitters were still in contention with 9 laps to go. And that's when the big one happened. And it was so interesting. I mentioned Alex Bowman beforehand. So it looked to me like, Bowman bumped Byron, who then turned Keselowski, hooked Keselowski, and that triggered the whole thing, right? So afterwards, I'm talking to Bowman on pit road, and I put the whole exchange on X if you guys want to go look the exact quotes. But I was like, oh, so what happened there? What'd you see out of that the big wreck? And Bowman says, well, I think it might have started from the third lane. Like he was asking, like, is that right? And I'm like, wait, are we talking about like the big one? He's like, yeah, on the backstretch. I'm like, yeah, like you bumped Byron and Byron hooked Keselowski. And he's like, oh, okay, gotcha. Like, yeah, I didn't even know that. Like he couldn't see. He said he couldn't see that Byron contact with Keselowski was what even started that. Like just the way you are in the pack, I guess. But both he and Byron said ultimately the same thing, which was, they were trying to work together. Byron just got a little bit out of shape, and Byron said the Chevy noses are a little bit more pointy, and he felt like if they just get misaligned a little bit, that can send the Chevys. And Bowman said he was trying to get off them, and he just kind of pushed at the wrong angle, I guess, and that sent Byron into Keselowski, I guess. So I chalk it up as one of them racing deals at super speedways, which was sort of a consistent theme of every driver that got out is just sort of like, that's how it is. That's how the racing is. Like whether you ask about the fuel saving stuff or which they didn't like racing like that, or being in the wrecks, they're just like, it's like everybody just kind of just shrugs at this point and goes, super. I mean, even Blaney, you're like, oh man, Blaney's going to be mad again. He was so mad at the duels. And he even hurt his wrist this time, it looks like. And he gets out and he's like, oh, I'm not nearly as mad as that. That's just how it is. Yeah. You're like, oh, I guess that's just how it is.
No, and his wrist is okay, so he says. So that's good.
So, I mean, but what do you interpret that? Like, I mean, do you...
Super speedway racing. Like, it's part of it. When you make 9 laps to go in this race, any race in a super speedway, guys are making big moves. Guys are pushing hard to get to the front. You can no longer, be concerned about... taking care of your equipment and making sure you get to the finish. It's like, you got to go. And especially if you're coming from the back and you've been kind of conserving all day, like you've got to get that track position. You've conceded all day back and you got to be aggressive. And sometimes you're going to push the guy in the wrong spot. Sometimes the guy's going to get a little loose. Doesn't, with these new cars we don't, there's a lot of unknowns of how the bumpers are going to match up and how you can do pushes. This is a cliche racing deal. Like there is no blame on this one. It wasn't like someone was being overly aggressive or someone made a stupid move or anything. It was just unfortunate. This is what it was. And especially going into turn 3, when you're carrying all that speed down the backstretch, this is what happens.
I know it's probably the opposite of what a podcast should do in some ways. To like,
no, you need hot takes, Jeff. This is like, I need you to give me a hot take on this race. Who's to blame? Who should keep their job? Who should be fired? Come on, demand something.
I wish I could. I wish I could say, man, what a stupid move this guy made. What I can't believe he did this. But like all the wrecks both the wrecks we're about to talk about, I just, and we'll get to the other one in a minute. But like it reminds me of something that Keselowski said on media day, because I was asking him about the unpredictable pushes, and here's what he said. Here's his quote: "You just go out there and start pushing, and you hope you don't wreck the guy in front of you. There's not really an exact science. You don't know when you're pushing somebody, and they're going to wreck more times than not. Sometimes you get a little warning. You see a guy bobble a little bit, and you go, whoa, he's at the limit. And then sometimes you're pushing someone, and everything's going fine, and then they're gone, and it's like, what happened to that guy?" So I think this was one of those situations probably where this situation, the big one, could have happened again a dozen times earlier in the pack. saw all these guys pushing the crap out of each other, and you're like, oh my gosh, oh, I can't believe they've kept it straight this long. Finally, one didn't go right, but to say, oh, Bowman, Byron, Keselowski, whatever, like I have a really hard time pointing the finger and going, I can't believe they did that or whatever. Like it's 9 laps to go on the Daytona 500. You're trying to get every position you can get. You're trying to work together and push. And this is not, it's not very easy. I mean, it's very, I know they make it look easy, but it's not. So I just don't have, I can't really point the finger. I'm sorry.
This is no way to host a podcast. You need hot takes. You need to be pointing fingers, assigning blame, demanding people accountability.
All right, well, let's move to the last wreck.
All right.
Okay.
Who's the blame?
The last wreck, Ross Chastain was in it, which makes you think, ooh, because Ross Chastain was making a move.
Blame Ross, right?
At the white flag, and so it's like, oh, that was my first. When it happened in the moment, I thought Ross got too aggressive too early, tried to make a move, game over, right? Then, I listened to Austin Cindric's interview from Front Stretch that they posted at the Care Center, and he wasn't mad at Ross. He was mad at Corey LaJoy. And I'm like, what? What do you mean? So I was like,
you're blaming Corey. Okay.
I really missed something here. I need to go back and watch the replay. So again, when you watch the replay, yes, Ross at the white flag decides he's going to make a bold move to the inside. He's behind Byron, and he says, I'm going to sweep down to the bottom. And he said in his interview, he wanted to make sure he totally cleared Byron so that he wouldn't wreck Byron. So he wanted to go way low and aggressive to get out of Byron's way so he could try to clear him, right? But when you look at the same time, that's when what Cindric is upset about. LaJoy tries to go underneath Cindric, and Cindric kind of, I don't know, it probably wasn't even a block, honestly. But it was, he was maybe trying to cover, but whatever. LaJoy is obviously, as he does at the end of this race, is, he's going absolutely foot to the floor. It's the white flag of Daytona 500. He's going for it, right? So that causes Cindric to bobble just enough. So that bobbles Cindric up the track just as Chastain is making his sweeping move to come down. They collide, and that's what happened. So I think if either of those moves happen independently, like even if Cindric gets out of shape, I'm not sure Cindric wrecks right there. He may be able to save it if Chastain isn't coming down. And conversely, if that bobble doesn't happen and Chastain makes his move down, he might be able to clear it to win the 500. So again, I wish I could say it was X person's fault. This is what happened. Blame this guy. He's the bad guy. But again, it seems like one of those racing deals. They're all going for it. You can't blame anybody. It's the last lap of Daytona 500. I mean, even Byron in his post-race press conference just said, I was thinking during the red flag, oh man, I hate that I was caught up in that wreck, or, I was involved in that wreck. But I need to put that behind me because, this might be my only shot ever to win the 500. And he said, even now, this might have been it. Like, I might never line up on the front row of the 500 again, basically, or the front 2 rows, right? So, like, this is such a hard race to win and be in position even at the end, and it takes so much to go your way. You can't then turn around and fault guys for going for it. I mean, how can you? That's just... So I just think it's, again, one of those deals.
Hot take right there. One of those racing deals. The take is as hot as your suit, Jeff. But you're right. But you're right, though. Like, I mean, it's like you want to say, oh, you shouldn't have done this. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. Monday morning quarterback. I really don't feel like anybody did anything wrong. Everybody kind of did the right move at the right time. Like, even LaJoy, who ran a really, really good race. Like, put himself in position. Was leading a line late at the end and had a really good chance to win this race. Like, you can't fault him. Like, Cindric can blame him, and I get that, but like, you have an opportunity to win this race. You don't have many opportunities like this because of the situation he's in. It's like, hell yeah, you're gonna put your foot into it. You're gonna go, and it didn't work out. And I'm fine with how the race played out. I have no issues with the caution flag. I want to hear your opinion on it. I know you were telling me that social media was abuzz a little bit about this. I've looked at it multiple times before. I looked at it since. I don't see an issue. To me, it's conclusive. 24 is the winner. Alex Bowman even seemed to concede it. Like, I don't see what the hubbub is about.
Yeah, so I think it was maybe a couple things. I think Fox at the finish, you listen to Boyer, and for a second he's like, well, the caution comes out there. It looks like Bowman's ahead, and let's see what happened here. And then I didn't watch the entire last part of the broadcast because I had to run outside. But from what I could tell, I'm not sure TV had access to the exact shot or view or whatever that NASCAR used to judge. And then, so, people start showing the replay of Bowman's in-car, and you slow it down enough and you see, okay, well, it looks like Bowman is pulled ahead, and when the light flashes, it looks like he's ahead at that point. So it's like, oh, okay, well, did they get this wrong? So then NASCAR ultimately comes out with the definitive screenshot, which is the aerial view. And they said this is what they used here to decide this, which is the caution light that's on the actual flag stand, like that one that illuminates the big one. That is yellow. And you can see from this aerial shot that as that light is yellow, Byron is still slightly ahead. Byron is the winner. So
yeah,
I think I can understand why there's confusion, because when you look at Bowman's in-car, it is kind of convincing. Like, well, it looks like he's maybe pulled ahead here, and that light's on. I don't know if that light is timed the same. I don't have that answer. I would like to know more about that. And you also, I will say, from Bowman's in-car, you kind of lose sight of Byron, and so I don't know. I would like to have more transparency and a more definitive shot. I feel like they have all this technology.
That aerial shot was pretty good, though. Like,
yes, but could we see like a video, or like, remember, I think somebody, I don't know if it was Couch Racer or somebody on Twitter posted, what happened to this shot from a few years ago? Like when McDowell, it was like a virtual line from the scoring loop.
It was 2021 Daytona 500. He and Elliott, the wreck happened in turn 3 with all the Penske guys, and Elliott had passed him, but the caution was already out, and they came back and said, no, here's where everything matched up.
But they had like a graphic with it and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, what happened to that thing?
I don't know. I mean, maybe we'll see it. I don't know. I haven't checked social media, so I couldn't tell you.
Well, I'm saying it to this point, it does not exist. So.
To me, it feels like a non-controversy. Like, I mean, when you've got the second place guy even saying like, hey, the other car was ahead of me.
Yeah, I get that, but the fans are asking, they just want to know the rules. Sure. But once they put that aerial shot out, it was like, okay, well, that's how it is. Now, the other part of this is, the wreck seems to happen right before he gets to the line. And I would have thought for a moment, well, I mean, NASCAR's had a pretty quick trigger finger before. Could they not have thrown the caution right there? I mean, it would have had to be split second, but to preserve, to set up an overtime finish or whatever, right? But then NASCAR spokesman Mike Ford tweets, and then you kind of see their logic, which is that they saw the spin start to happen, and it wasn't a multi-car deal yet, right? Well, I guess it was technically a multi-car. There was 2 cars, but it wasn't like it wasn't a big one. So you saw Chastain in the grass, and you saw Hendrick momentarily in the grass. And the decision from the tower was, let's hold this for a second. Let's see if they are in the grass, and then we can keep it green, which is how they officiate the end of super speedway races, right? Like you'll see sometimes one car spins off, and they try to keep it green as long as they can until it's a dangerous situation. So NASCAR was thinking, okay, well, hold it just for a second here and just see. And then Mike Ford said, once Hendrick started coming back up on the track, game over. At that point, you have to throw the caution.
And especially at that part of the racetrack, too, at the start-finish line, when cars are going to be coming at speed with high stakes, you can't have it. I mean, if this would have been a backstretch, that's a different story because it gives opportunity for the leaders to slow down. That point of the racetrack, you've got debris. What else on the race? Fluids. Who knows what else on the race? You can't do it. And again, no problem at all with a caution in that moment.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because, of course,
it denied us a great finish. I mean, right. That memorable can't miss finish. But what do you do?
Yeah, Yeah. No, I just think, I mean, yes, could you? I think the decision is either if you can somehow immediately, as soon as one car gets out of shape at that point, throw the caution right before Byron gets to the line, and then you make him re-rack and do it again. Of course, you're then going to tear up
That's
hundreds of
so
thousands of dollars
quick and
more.
so
I mean, you would have had to do it.
instantaneous.
Yeah.
Like, I
Yeah.
mean, that's
there's,
quick, and
yeah.
that's tough because, yeah.
Yeah. But
And
so,
especially if, because you don't know this all is unfolding in real time, is like if the 2 and the 1 car get going again and drive away, you just threw a caution for no reason. And what would we be doing on this podcast? What would other people be doing? Why did they throw the caution? Oh, they're manufacturing it. And more than likely what's going to come from that restart. Well, you're going to probably end up having a caution or two. So it's like,
yeah.
I think NASCAR deserves credit for handling this the right way. They gave it that split second to try to not hit the button, and when it became evident that they had to hit the button, they hit the button. And I really have a hard time quibbling with anything that unfolded from their end over the last 2 laps or whatever it was.
Yeah. I mean, again, sorry to be disappointing here without the hot takes, but I mean,
Supposed to be angry Jeff. We missed the angry, riled up Jeff who had like spewing opinions and hot takes.
I'll get there. I mean, it's a long season, buddy. It's only the first race.
I gotta figure out something else to get you riled up about.
Yeah, I'll rant, but I just think everybody's sort of accepted at this point.
Yeah.
This is the nature of these races. This is the nature of these races with this car, because this car, it's not as easy to dice through the pack, and so you really got to keep your track position, which makes everybody want to take less fuel, right? Like, so you've got to save fuel the whole time, and and so they're racing, but it also, again, to the casual fan, yes, they're saving fuel and they're like, this sucks, we can't go anywhere. But the casual fan's watching a pack go around. They're not watching single file. So I don't know if it's actually that bad for like the casual viewers. And it wasn't a clown show. It wasn't like excessive wrecking. It was pretty compelling for the most part, and you just didn't get a great finish. Other than that, I mean, sorry, it was fine. It was all good, I mean, I can rant about Mother Nature. I feel bad for NASCAR, honestly.
Oh,
like,
man, I do too. Like
they had all this momentum, and would have liked to see what would have happened with the Netflix effect had the had the Clash gone off as scheduled, not had to go a day early and rushed and all that stuff, and at Daytona getting postponed, obviously that hurts. You don't know what the ratings are going to do for this. Obviously it would have been better, but I mean, when you look at the dual ratings were the highest since 2019,
qualifying too,
single car qualifying was up, you have to think ratings probably would have been up. It was probably going in the right direction. And so like, it feels like NASCAR is actually doing some of the right things. And then both their first 2 marquee races here to start the season are impacted by rain. So pretty unlucky, but I tell you what, Jordan, if there's a year to do it, it's after you already signed that sweet TV deal.
I mean, you're right. I mean, you don't got to worry about going to the negotiating table with your, potential TV partners and be, trying to squeeze some money out of them. You've got that done, but I mean, there's still something to be said to go into your sponsors and, saying, hey, we had X rating at this time. I mean, the benefit is I do think viewers at home got a good race. They got a compelling race. They got a compelling winner, an interesting guy, a superstar. He may not be a household name yet, but I think he's
Byron's
on that path.
A compelling winner and a superstar?
One more time?
You said William Byron is a compelling winner and a superstar?
I think he is a compelling winner, and I think he's on the path to being a superstar of like that, household name type guy.
I don't
You don't think so?
I don't think so. No.
You don't think he's on the path to being a household name?
Not at this point.
He's not saying right at this point, but the guy just came off a dominant season. We talked about, almost won the championship, comes back and wins the Daytona 500, drives for an iconic team, an iconic number. Like if he backs up the year he had a year ago and does it again this year, like that's pretty rarefied company. Like you've taken that step. I mean, and you've got the interesting backstory of this, young kid who learned, racing, iRacing and non-traditional way. Like I'm not saying he's now that's who he is, but like another year or two of doing this, yes, he's on that path.
I don't think the fans feel sort of one way or another toward Byron at this point. So you have to have.
Sure, but I mean, fans don't. There's a lot of drivers that fans are indifferent about. I mean, it doesn't make you any less
Well,
of a
that's not
superstar.
compelling then. I mean,
I think
compelling is like somebody that makes you either cheer or boo. We saw The Rock talk about Denny Hamlin and how good a villain it is to be a villain, and let me and Denny handle the boos. And here's my advice to Denny about being a villain and stuff. Um, you know, I think Byron is a great dude. He's super down to earth. I mean, for gosh sakes, he sits at home and does Legos in his free time. He's a nice guy. I mean, he grew up in suburban Charlotte. I mean, we heard about how he used to. I mean, he was growing up in Jimmy Johnson's neighborhood, bringing his pillowcase around trick or treating at Jimmy Johnson's house, and now he learns on, teaches himself essentially how to race. His parents give him a chance. And now his hero, Jimmy Johnson, is congratulating him in Daytona 500 Victory Lane. It's a beautiful story. It's beautiful.
Thank you. You just made you just made my case. That's compelling.
But I don't know that resonates outside of our little bubble here. I don't know that does anything. Does the average sports fan, are they aware of William Byron? Do they know who he is? I mean, I don't think he's got a long way to go there. He's got to probably win multiple championships and be pretty dominant for a while, or date Taylor Swift or something to get on the map. So I don't think this win in particular like moves the needle outside our bubble. And that's nothing against William. It's just like, I mean,
well, I mean, there's a difference. I mean, he's compelling and interesting. That's what I'm saying. Like, is he going to move the needle? I mean, not necessarily, but he is interesting. Like it's the backstory is interesting. He's interesting. This is no different than watching the Masters and this young kid who's been touted and has won a couple tournaments and think he's gonna be the next great thing. Comes in and wins. Like that to me that's how you become a story. Is you win races like this, and you have a year like you had in 2023. I think somebody sitting at home who's a casual NASCAR fan at best, they're like, wait a second, this kid is 26 and he didn't start racing until his early teens, and he did it on his computer and iRacing and all. What? Like that you don't think people are like, that's interesting. I think there's something there. I mean, is he gonna be a household name? Is he the next Dale Jr. or Jeff Gordon? No. Pump the no. But the story is compelling enough where like moms at home are like, that's interesting. That's kind of cool. I think there's something there. Why are you smirking like this?
Can we just rewind to the beginning of this discussion when you said he's on the path to being a household name, and then you just said, is he going to be a household name? No,
but there's a difference between being like a Chase Elliott household name and a megawatt superstar like a Jeff Gordon or Dale Earnhardt Jr.
You just said
you're picking this
he's on the path to being a household name and a superstar, and I go, no, I don't really think so. And then now you've come back and said, well, he's not going to be a household name or a Chase Elliott type superstar.
He's not going to be a guy he's not going to host Saturday Night Live like a Jeff Gordon. He's not going to be a Dale Earnhardt Jr. who shows up in MTV
exactly.
But you can still be a superstar, though. He's like that, forget it. Oh, my God. It's exhausting.
Oh, I love this podcast again. Oh, this is the best part of my whole day. Sorry.
So you can only be a superstar. There's not levels of superstardom. There's just there's one level of superstardom, and that's it.
I feel like I hope the chat agrees with me. I can't even see.
So does that mean like Ryan Blaney's is not a superstar because he's not a household name?
Not yet. He's not a superstar yet. Not yet.
I think there's degrees of superstardom, but okay.
Yeah, star and superstar. Here's superstar up here, and then there's star. So that's the degree.
Okay, cool.
Okay, I think you're ready to move on.
No, it's fine. We're just it's semantics anyway.
All right. Well, it was enjoyable for me.
But I mean, it sucks for NASCAR. Like, I mean, you have all of these things kind of fall into place, and the Clash was a good race, but unfortunately, it was on Saturday night on cable. Not prime time on Sunday night. This was a good race. I'm curious to see the rating for this. I mean, we know it ended in prime time on Big Fox. I don't know. You know this a little bit better than I do. I do think the potential's there for this still to be a good race. But having it weather impacted is certainly going to impact it. I will say, I thought there were a lot of people here today. This didn't feel like a typical Monday postponed race. I was walking the pit road today, and I was looking around. And I'm like, damn, there are a lot of people here. Like a lot of people. And obviously, it's not what it would have been on Sunday, but I don't think it was dramatically off. I will say that.
Yeah, a couple anecdotes from that. Number one, our friend Big Joe Wall, who we always talk about on this podcast because he calculates our results of the Good Race Poll, right? He showed up at the Tweet Up this morning. He wasn't supposed to come here. He said he was at brunch yesterday morning in Michigan, and he saw that the 500 was postponed, and he thought, you know what? I'm going to look into flights at the last minute, hotels. They were cheaper because, it was for the day after the 500. He was able to get tickets. He flew down and he went to the race. That early call by NASCAR allowed that to happen, right? And that was
another person
thing.
I talked to, same thing.
And then I ran into somebody out in the fan zone, and she was saying that they had seen the forecast and they figured this was already going to happen, because the forecast was pretty clear and never changed. So they just made their flights for Tuesday from the start. Like they just were like, no, we're all good. We're going to build this in. So I think that the early call and the bad forecast sort of combined to make people have flexible plans or even bring people to the track that might not have been able to come otherwise. So obviously, look, some people probably had to eat their tickets. They had to go home. It didn't work out for everybody, but certainly a larger than normal rainout crowd. I mean, it felt like it was still the big Daytona 500 crowd, if not an absolute sellout. Then, it felt huge. It felt important. So that's what you want out of Daytona 500. And ultimately, you finish, in prime time on a Monday night. Probably not a bad thing.
No.
Let's see what the ratings do. It's obviously it didn't run as intended, but let's see what it does.
Yeah, and I will say the forecast for Atlanta next Sunday looks pretty nice for Atlanta, considering what it's been the last few years. When it's been very chilly. It was in the last forecast I saw was like low 70s or something like that. It's like, all right, we'll take that. And this was NASCAR's reasoning for putting Atlanta in the second race of the year. But if you tuned in today and you liked what you saw, you're going to see something very similar next Sunday, which I don't know if that's. I don't know if you can relate that or not, but that's certainly going to be something to watch.
It was interesting because drivers were talking at media day about how, this could be really good or really bad, right? Like having two drafting style tracks back to back to open the season because, say you're a Corey LaJoie type, right? Well, if you can string two great finishes together all of a sudden, or like Noah Gragson finished 10th, Zane Smith finished in the top 10. John Hunter Nemechek finished in the top 10. Or maybe, did Zane Smith finish the top 10? I think he did, right?
Yeah, I thought he finished. I thought he did.
Oh, no. He finished 13th. Sorry.
13th. Close.
Anyway, if you can string those together, that's great all of a sudden, right? On the other hand, suddenly if you're, Tyler Reddick, Ryan Blaney, Ricky Stenhouse Jr., Joey Logano, Brad Keselowski, Daniel Suarez, he needed a good start. Michael McDowell needs a good start. Austin Dillon, off his bad season, he needed a good start. All this Harrison Burton, right? Like, all of a sudden, if you go to Atlanta now and you have another bad race or another crash that's even not of your own doing, it's like, oh man, what a hole we've created for ourselves here, and we haven't even gotten to the real racing yet, so to speak. So it'll be interesting how you stack it up. Of course, you will be at that race for the Athletic, and so I should remind everybody that we have our own section on The Athletic now, theathletic.com/NASCAR, which has been very well received because people are so tired of seeing our stuff mixed in with the F1 stuff. Some people like F1, some people don't, but they wanted us to have our own landing spot where they can just go see our work. And so you can do that now, theathletic.com/NASCAR. We were very proud of our stories that we had this week. I was probably most proud of my Spire Motorsports charter story, which I would like, since I spent like probably 15 hours writing that or something. I would like everybody to read that, please. Your anonymous poll was great and had some fantastic quotes that people were still talking about, especially regarding the tracks, what the drivers thought of the tracks.
Oh, yeah.
That was really good.
Thank you.
12 questions is exclusive to the Athletic this year. There's a bunch of other stuff. So, we're going to have much more to come all season long, not just from Daytona. So if you could please support our work so we can keep going to these races, we would appreciate it. And you can go to, again, theathletic.com/NASCAR. But Jordan, what else are you looking forward to from Atlanta when you get there next week? Like, do you think it's worn out enough that it won't be?
I mean,
Yeah,
that's the question, right? I mean, when they did this reconfiguration, it was give it a little bit of time, let the track wear a little bit, and it's not going to be the super speedway pack racing that it was at the drop. I haven't seen it yet. I haven't seen that change. Both races last year, Atlanta felt much like what we've seen when they first reconfigured it. Maybe hot. If it's going to be 70 degrees and sunny, maybe that changes it up a little bit. But curious to see if that track changes because, as you can read in the driver survey on the Athletic, there's not some fans. Their drivers aren't too fans of that place. They don't like it. They miss the old Atlanta, though. The old Atlanta wasn't very entertaining, to be honest with you. So I understand why they feel their way, but on the other hand, that old Atlanta track needed to be done with it. So we'll see. Looking at this race really quick, just a couple other notes. Another year, no win for Brad Keselowski. Another year, no win for Kyle Busch. No win for Martin Truex Jr. Guys that are up there in their careers. I mean, they're not retiring anytime soon, but they're a lot closer to the end than the beginning. Both of those guys, both Brad and Kyle Truex too. I mean, he was up there. Had very much a realistic shot to win this thing. Brad got caught up in that wreck, and I don't even know. Honestly, I don't know what happened to Kyle.
I don't either. I mean, because he had a heck of a comeback.
Oh my God, he was back in the top 10. Kyle finished 12th, by the way.
Yeah, he finished 12th. I don't see I didn't see what happened to him in the wreck.
Yeah, I didn't either.
That would have put him back, I guess, but in the big one. But yeah, he came back to 12th. But yeah, I mean, they both put themselves in great position, right? I mean, Keselowski was in position, and you could tell that from Logano's interview too, right? Like, I mean, he said he thought he had the people around him that he wanted around him, which is as important as anything at the end of these races, right? Like people he could work with and people he trusted, and you still get wrecked. And I wrote a story on The Athletic for Sunday, and it was just like the drivers talking about just the weird dichotomy of this race where it's like, we all know it's not about pure talent or pure skill or even who drove the best race or who had the fastest car. But yet it's highly regarded as the number one race to win. And it's like, how do you reconcile those two things? It's sort of like the eternal question in NASCAR, because you sort of never can really, we'll go through periods where we're like, oh, it's totally random who wins these things. And it's like, no, it's not. It's guys who continually put themselves in position. That's who it is.
It's true.
Well, we thought that was true, but guess who won tonight? A guy who had never finished on the lead lap of the Daytona 500.
No, hang on. Byron is one. I understand that, but Byron is one on a super speedway. He's won here at Daytona.
About half the field's won on a super speedway at this point.
No, that's not true. Kyle Larson hasn't. Truex hasn't. I mean, I can keep going if you want. No, there is something. Byron is noted as one of the better super speedway racers, period. If you were going to draft a team, he's not the top pick because there's Hamlin, Blaney, but he's close to the top. He's in the top 10. He's really good in these races. And yeah, he's had bad luck here, but he's one of those guys always in the mix. And even if you look at the recent winners, McDowell, Hamlin won in 20, obviously. McDowell in 21, we know he was good. It's not a fluke. And Stenhouse won last year. The only one you could look at and say out of left field, crazy is Cinder because he's a rookie, also driving for Penske, but he's also good. He has experience. I am firmly of the belief. I get tired of that notion of this is a crapshoot and it happens. I get it, but more often than not, the guys who win these races are pretty damn good. Byron and Logano won both Atlanta races last year. Well, guess what? They're both great on super speedways. Blaney won at Talladega last fall. I mean, I look at this and like, there's a reason these guys continue to put themselves in the position, and the same crop of guys continue to win a bulk of these races. Like, I get there's a luck element involved, but there's a skill, and I don't think these guys get enough credit for that.
I totally agree with you. I don't argue with that at all. But the crapshoot element of it is you can do everything right.
Sure.
And
Logano did tonight. Logano did just about everything right.
Really. I mean,
yeah. I mean, a lot of these guys did, and I get that, and that's part of it. And so, I do wonder, as you know, in the case of Brad and Kyle and Martin, like you almost, Brad tweeted something and you could tell, like, this bums him out, like, like, you're not gonna have a lot more shots at this because it's you kind of almost, you wonder if you start to think of like, man, I may go my career without winning that race. The race I want to win more than anything, the race that defines us in a lot of respects, may be one that I'm not going to have my resume like a Rusty Wallace or a Mark Martin or a Tony Stewart.
I mean, that's true, but I also don't think, in the story that I was referencing that I wrote, like Logano says in the story, the Daytona 500 not only doesn't define your career, but like if you could choose to have 15 Cup wins versus one Daytona 500, he said, I think I'd take the 15 Cup wins. And he is a Daytona 500 winner, but he said he'd rather have 15 Cup wins than one Daytona 500 because ultimately that is sort of like the truer test of your overall career and your skill and your talent and your team. And so, yes, this race will always be the race, right? Like it's always going to be NASCAR Super Bowl, and it gets the most hype, and The Rock comes and gets all fired up, and it's cool, right? Like it's NASCAR's shot at the big time and to compete on the national sports landscape, right up there, the Kentucky Derby and things like that. But ultimately, it's, I think it was Keselowski's quote to Bob Pockrass on Media Day, I think, where he said something like this race chooses you or something. Like it's just not all in your control, and everybody just sort of accepts that. But it's still, it's so tough to wrap your arms around that concept in so many ways. But that's how it is.
How excited were you to see The Rock on Sunday?
How excited was I?
Yeah. A lot of people were pretty excited to see him. I was wondering where your excitement level was at.
I mean, I think it's pretty badass. Like, I think he's pretty cool. I like The Rock. It was really cool because, DJ Khaled had come in, which I love. Obviously, probably people saw my video of asking Bob, yo, Bob, how's business? Booming, right? Like, and he got to show that video of DJ Khaled and all that stuff. That was really fun. But like, there's more of like a casual environment with a lot of the celebrities that come into these media centers. There's very few that like suck the air out of the room before they enter. And like, it was like dead quiet in there for like 5 minutes before The Rock came in. That media center was like almost every seat was filled. And it was just like totally, like it just felt like a big presence. And then the door opened and he like walks in and like, he kind of like cracked a little joke and like everybody's like, oh, The Rock. Like, he has almost like 500 million followers on Instagram or something crazy like that. So, I mean, the guy he's The Rock. He's pretty big. Kind of like, who doesn't know who he is, It's not like one of these people where they name him Grand Marshal or whatever, and all the NASCAR fans respond to your tweet and they're like, who? I've never heard of this guy. You're not going to say that about The Rock, right? So I also think it's really cool that he stayed an extra day. Yeah. A lot of, people, especially, I'm sure he's pretty busy. And he stayed long enough. He stuck it out. He got here. He was posting on his Instagram Saturday night. He was very enthusiastic about it.
And what do you think The Rock did on his Sunday of like day off in Daytona, where he had like is he going to the oyster pub? Is he, just walking the boardwalk along the street? What's he doing in Daytona on a random Sunday that's raining?
I mean, aside from coming in the media center briefly, I think he probably was in the gym, because have you seen that dude's arms?
Yeah.
I mean, they're bigger than my head.
He goes to the gym at like midnight though, so sometime before
Yeah.
midnight though, he's got to be doing something.
How many times a day do you think he goes to the gym?
That's a good question. Probably
I
a
mean-
couple. A lot more than I do. That's for sure.
Yeah. And that wasn't a shot at you, but I mean,
No,
Yeah.
I get it. Listen. I mean, I'm sculpted, but I ain't that sculpted.
you're sculpted?
I mean,
Oh, breaking
you don't
news.
you don't look like this, by accident.
Okay. Well, I mean, I look like this, so
Yeah, you look good. Look at you.
I'm
Well, that's
almost
super.
sad. I'm almost sad that I'm not gonna dress so nice anymore after this.
I just want to point out quick. I know we're not going to talk about the suit, but you did acknowledge, you did agree to that I am going to dress you for Phoenix Championship weekend. You said that. There's witnesses. Our friend NASCAR Chasm was there. You can't back out on this.
I have some information I could pull out right now that I'd really like to pull out. So don't make
What
me.
information is that?
don't make me
No,
pull that
no,
out.
No.
I think you should reveal the source of the suit, Jordan.
No. Oh no, we're not doing that. No.
Yeah, we're live on the podcast, and the people want to know. Where'd
No.
you get the suit?
I ordered it.
Okay, where'd you order it
No,
from?
not order. No, we're not talk. We already talked about. We are not doing this. We are done with this. We're putting this to bed. We are moving on.
I think it's very important for people to know because remember, if you back up, you were poo-pooing the idea that I would get you clothes from Target for this bet.
I did not get it at Target. No.
You did not get it at Target. Can you just tell everybody
No,
please, where you got it from?
No.
I'm going to. This is
No, you promised you wouldn't. I asked you. You can't break your word. We're not doing this. You gave me your word. I told you in confidence. Don't break
that's
that
why
trust.
I think you should just tell everybody.
Anyway, I think it's time for the good race poll.
Please, can you just tell everybody, please?
No.
It's not that big of a deal.
No, we're not doing this. Time for the good race poll.
I did
I
give my
believe
word.
you
and
won our last poll, by the way.
I don't want people to think that I don't keep my promises, but I do think that you owe the listeners an explanation of where you
Duly
got.
noted. Got it. Thank you. Moving on.
Sorry, guys, I tried. All right, well, the Was It a Good Race poll. I won the Clash, but
Oh my
boy,
goodness!
was
There's,
that,
can I just interrupt really quick? Like
What?
this Xfinity race, there's just another big wreck.
yeah, it just got really quiet out there.
There's like one big. Every time I look down, it feels like there's one big wreck after another in this thing.
Yeah, I think this is at least the ninth
This is
caution. So
Custer's in this one. Allgaier.
yeah,
Man, wrecking a
I
lot of
was
cars.
thinking that we would try to milk this podcast until the end of the race, but they keep wrecking so much.
I'm
that-
not spending the night here. The way this race is going, I already got to work late enough the way it is. I'm not staying until the morning.
Yeah, this is definitely a big wreck. This is the one with for those of you listening later, 9 laps to go, and
Ooh.
they're tearing up some stuff tonight, folks. Anyway, okay, so the Was It a Good Race poll. I did win the Clash one, although we were both off by like 30% or
mega.
something. We were
Racing is good. People sometimes I wonder what people are going to vote, or why they're voting
well,
the
you
way
have
they
to
do.
take into account all the factors of why people would,
Yeah,
they didn't like the Clash.
they didn't like the venue.
They
I
didn't-
get it.
Yeah. So they wanted to send a message that they didn't want it back there. And,
Sure.
Denny played a part in that and all that stuff. So, anyway, what do I think it's going to be tonight? You have to look at ultimately even the great super speedway races, don't get super high. Was it a good race poll results? They just don't. It's very rare for a super speedway race to get even close to the 90s. But I think this was a very good race and very entertaining. People probably aren't going to like the finish. I don't know, but I don't see why you would vote it down like below 80. Like, I don't see what would people not like about it. So, because of that, and I'm trying to make sure that I trap you where I want to go here, because I think you're going to Price is Right me as well. I think I'll go 84.5%.
All right, 84.5%. That's good.
Yeah.
I thought this was a good race. I don't understand why people wouldn't vote this way, but that thinking often gets me in trouble. I actually learned a lesson from how I voted at the Clash. I got to remember going forward. What I think often sometimes isn't what other people think. What I believe is constitutes a good race isn't always the same thing. So 80s just mid 80s seems a little high to me. So I'm a gentleman. Unlike you, I'm not gonna box you in like that. I'm gonna say 79 for, I don't know, for whatever reason. Maybe it's the delay. Maybe some people couldn't watch it. They worked at 4:00 and they couldn't get home and to watch the beginning of it. They didn't like the winner. Maybe honestly, let's be honest, maybe they wanted to see more crashes. Maybe there's some people that want to see that stuff. I don't know. For whatever reason, I'm gonna go 79.
Wow, the clash really shook you, huh? You're throwing out.
It honestly did. It really did change. Like I really had to. I'm not kidding you. Like I actually I need to reevaluate this, like on how I think of things, and I don't understand.
Oh
I'm not,
boy, we got Jordan rattled after one. Was it a good race poll? He is nervous about the bet already.
You know what? When you're wearing a pink suit like that, you stop clapping because big picture, bud. Over a 38 week season, I'm gonna come out ahead more often than not.
It doesn't sound like it. It sounds like you've lost your confidence.
Confidence.
I'm liking this. By the way, we are accepting suggestions for how we will settle this bet next year, because we just decided that we've done the closed thing, so we need something else. However, I'll throw this out, Jordan. And so please, for those of you listening, we won't decide right now. We'll figure it out by the summer. But we need to decide what the bet is. So throw suggestions at us. We'll take all those. So I was on the elevator today, and I hop on, and another compliment for your suit that you picked out. This woman, it's just this woman to me. It's kind of awkward. She's like, "Oh, honey, you looking fine." And I'm like, "Oh, I actually lost a bet." She's like, "Oh, honey, I don't think you lost the bet. I think you won the bet." And I'm like, "Well,"
She wink at you?
She's like, well, she explained
Did she
that.
wink at you?
Did she wink at me? No, she held out her hand for a high five.
She wanted physical contact with you.
Sure.
Okay.
I'm taken. Okay. All right.
I understand. I'm just saying.
All right. Anyway,
some women are attracted to that.
Oh, jeez. So, yeah, sorry, boy, you just really threw me off with that comment there, Jordan. Jeez, holy cow. So she said, well, yeah, she explained that she had a fantasy football league, and that people in her fantasy football league would have a bet, and they would always make the other person do something, bad for the loser. And she said that one year it was that like everybody had a beard or something, all the men. And so that the loser of like the big game or whatever, the Super Bowl in their fantasy league, had to shave off exactly half of the beard.
No.
And wear it. So only half a beard.
No.
Just one side you're here.
Yeah, I got it. The answer is no.
You wouldn't do that? We both have beards.
I got it. I understand. Thank you for the visual. I couldn't understand you had to shave half your face. I appreciate that. No, the answer is no. Absolutely not.
You just made me wear a pink suit.
And you look damn good. No one looks good with a half-shaven face. Show me somebody who looks good with a half-shaven face, and we can revisit this conversation.
I think that's the whole point of losing a bet. I mean, I did kind of, you were you were good here. You were easy on me. You could have made it a lot worse. And so this wasn't as bad as, it could have been. No. Right. But like, I think it should be a punishment to lose. Like shave half the face.
It was a punishment because you were uncomfortable.
I was very uncomfortable.
So that's your punishment. I'm not doing that.
I did not go in the garage today before the race.
I'm well aware that pissed me. Can I say pissed off on this? Because it pissed me off that you didn't. All day today I was lamenting to people because people are asking me about this. I don't mean to talk about this. I'm sorry. But like, oh man, where's Jeff? I'm like, he's up in the freaking press box. What? I'm like, yeah. The candy ass, to use a rock term, is hanging out in the press box all day instead of down here in the garage doing your job, talking to people, reporting, getting the inside scoop on things like we're supposed to do. You're up in the press box hiding.
I went to the tweet up. I didn't hide from anybody. I took like more pictures today than I've taken in my entire life. I didn't hide, but I wouldn't have been able to do my job anyway because it was like I might as well have walked around with like a huge flashing spotlight going off me. Everybody would have been like, "Oh, the suit." So I wouldn't have been able to like have a productive conversation. And it also, even on pit road afterwards, the drivers are like laughing in my face. So nobody's taking you seriously at this point. So it's like, nah, I'm just going to stay up in the press box and cover things from here. So that's why. Sorry,
right,
I offended
very
you.
good. That's fine.
All right.
It's all good. Anyway, yes, we do need listener
We
help.
need a new bet. Help us, please.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, we didn't make it to the end of Xfinity race unless you want to try to milk this for. There's 5 more laps.
I'm looking at my thing.
So.
The only thing I have another thing on my list. The only one I have left, honestly. I felt bad for Michael McDowell at Front Row Motorsports. Like, starts on the second row, smartly manages the duels, bails out at the end, preserves his car. You looked at how good the Fords are. We know he's fast. His teammate Todd Gilliland was good today. So presumably, if Gilliland's engine holds together and everything, like, he's going to certainly be in the mix, and you never know. Like, and it went sour halfway through stage 1, and he just was off the pace.
You said Gilliland.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, McDowell's engine went sour. He's limping around the rest of the day. Never had a chance. It just, this is a really super speedways in general are an opportunity race for Front Row Motorsports. Obviously, Daytona, especially with all it represents, and to have it go that way that early, I felt bad for him because they were a very optimistic bunch.
Gilliland led 16 laps today. Before today, he had only led 11 in his entire career, so that was a really good showing for him. By the way, who do you think led the most laps today? I would not have necessarily.
Christopher Bell?
No, he was second. He led 22 laps. Somebody led 45 laps.
I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. Oh, it was Logano.
Yeah.
Yeah, I knew that. Yeah, he dominated. He really
But
dominated.
you really had, so you had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 drivers lead double-digit laps today.
Yeah.
That's pretty interesting. For a Daytona 500, because it's not like just, you had one guy get up and lead a couple laps. Like 9 drivers in double digits. Mm-hmm. Byron led 4, so.
Well, the one that matters.
Yep. Anyway, all right. Well, I guess we'll give up on giving this. If there's something spectacular that finishes the Xfinity race, I'm not sure they have any cars left right now. But we'll try to do an add-on to this, but we just can't make it. No. In the meantime, everybody, thanks always for listening. Thanks to those of you who watch on the live chat. Thanks for those of you who listen on the podcast. Either way, we're appreciating you for giving us a shot here. I know we have a lot of new listeners as well. Thanks for giving us a try, and we will talk to you next time from Atlanta on the Teardown. See you, everybody.